Hello everybody, Calamity here, and today we're going to take a look at the most popular characters that are being used in the Spiral Abyss as of 3.8, and we're just going to take a look as to why some of these characters are really popular over others, and we'll also check out some popular teams. So first of all, we can see that Nahida over here is our reigning queen with an 87.1% usage rate, and that just makes sense, right? I mean, for the second half, we do have that annoyingly big Primal Construct boss, and then like you want to apply Dendro and Electro to it just for an easier time, and Nahida is perfect for that. Not to mention the second half of floor 12 really has the enemies kind of split up in a way where, like, if you have a Nahida, she makes it easier and you don't have to worry about grouping up your enemies, and it's just faster, clear time, and just ease of everything. She's just fantastic overall. Lots of Dendro application, lots of damage herself, if you want to build her that way, and just great character. Then we have Kazuha, who's our next best option if you don't have a Nahida, because he does help group up your enemies, but I would see him being used more in the first half for the little Rift Hounds and the Shadowy Husk enemies on the first chamber, so he's definitely a good go-to option for the first half. Yu'lon, 68.6%, great sub DPS character, just like Xingqiu. Makes sense that their usage rates are somewhat close to each other. Kokomi at 63.3%, it's just again one of those nice underdog stories where Kokomi, you just went from one of the least used characters to one of the most used characters. As I mentioned in my guide for Kokomi, it's just that she just has so many teams that she can be used in. Bennett used to be one of the top units ever in the game because of his heal and his attack buff, mainly the attack buff, but he has dropped a bit. He's still up there, he's still like top 6, top 7 unit in the game. That's still really good. But so we're gonna take a quick look at Bennett himself, and we can see that most of y'all are giving him a Skyward Blade, which that actually makes sense. The game's been out for a while, and a lot of characters a lot of players have built up their Bennett over time, done a lot of pulls, so chances are you have pulled the Skyward Blade. But hey, if you haven't, Aquila Favonia, after that, if you don't even have a 5-star option, then we have the Favonia's Sword. Even the Sapwood Blade being a really good option for him there. It gives a ton of energy recharge and gives a ton of elemental mastery, especially at Refinement 5. Depending on what team you put him in. So this isn't a bad option at all. And we can see a huge majority of you actually have him at Constellation 6, which is actually, wow, that's a really nice thing. A lot of people would advise against going Constellation 6, but it seems to be not the case these days. Then we can see his most popular team is going to be that Child International team or the Raiden International team, being the two most popular ones. There's also the Ayato one, the Yu'lon International, and another variant with Raiden Shogun without Kazuha here. Other teams that we see him being used in are the Raiden Hypercarry with Kujo Sara, and the Wanderer team as well in the second half with Faruzan and Zhongli. Moving down along the line, we have Nilo, who definitely got a huge spike in usage here, whether that's because of the rerun banner she had recently or just because of the enemy lineup. It's nice to see her back up here. She definitely was in the lower percentages. I would say she was around where Yaimiko and Tartaglia are in terms of usage. Raiden Shogun, of course, always going to be up here, just one of the strongest DPS and utility characters in the game. Baiju being up here, honestly, I don't know about you guys, but he surprises me being up here because I feel like on his banner release, a lot of people didn't like him. Like, I was seeing a lot of negative comments like, oh, another Dendro, or oh, I already have a healer, or I don't really need a shielder. But apparently not. He apparently is very, very popular in the Spiral Abyss, being both a healer and a shielder, providing plenty of Dendro application as well. So it's nice to see him up here. Next up, we have Zhongli, who definitely went down in terms of usage rate, but that's not really his fault. It's more of the first half of the Spiral Abyss kind of punishing you for bringing a shield. So we have the Rift Hounds in the Chamber 1 first half, and then we have the Shadowy Husk dudes in the first half for the second chamber. So it's not, you don't really want to bring a shield for those enemies, of course. Not saying that you can't, but it's definitely ill-advised. But you can definitely bring Zhongli for the second half with no problems, and I'm sure many people did. As we can still see, he has a pretty high usage rate of just under 50%. Next up, we have Al-Haytham, which personally, he's a character that I personally don't like as a DPS. I mean, if you like him, hey, he's all yours. It's just that for me, I don't like his really long cooldowns when he uses elemental skill and burst. Kuki Shinobu coming up next at 40.3%, and this is definitely for those that are doing a Hyper Bloom team in the Spiral Abyss, which isn't a bad idea at all. Just Hyper Bloom being very, very strong here. Zhang Ling at a solid 40% here. Definitely has gone down a bit since the other teams seem to be more popular, like Dendro Bloom teams and Hyper Bloom teams and all that stuff. Zhang Ling is still a very solid character, of course. Tons of AoE damage. Definitely, I could see her being used on the first half. Next up, we have Ayaka and Shenhe being really close to each other. Of course, they're like really good buddies here because, you know, you want to definitely use them together. Shenhe just amplifies Ayaka's damage by a ton, and of course Ayaka has great AoE damage for the first half. Yaimiko, 33.6%. Now, what teams are we actually using Yaimiko in? I'm kind of curious to take a look here. Wow, a lot of you have her signature weapon. I'm jealous. I don't have her. I don't have her signature weapon, I mean. And the majority of you do have her at Constellation 0. That makes sense. She is a 5-star limited character, and we're seeing that you guys are using her in an Aggravate team with Raiden Shogun with Baiju, looks like. We're also seeing her in a Taser team with Kokomi and Kazuha. Hyper Bloom team, it looks like here, with Kuki Shinobu. If we go down to the second half, oh yeah, that's definitely right. So if you're using Tignari in the second half, definitely Yaimiko is one of his better options here. And then we also have her with Al-Haytham. Also another good option there. That just makes sense. I see. Alright, Tartaglia, 30.7%. Tartaglia has just been a character that's been solid ever since his release. It's great. He's just been good, and I can definitely see him being used in the first half. Good AoE damage, plenty of enemies to use it on, and his international comp just being solid the entire time. Ayato up here with 27%. You know, just also solid character. It's just that Tartaglia has just been out longer, so I feel like a lot of people just kind of settle with Tartaglia as their main Hydro DPS. After that, we have Hu Tao. Now, Hu Tao definitely has a lower usage rate here, and that is mainly because there's lack of bosses on this Spiral Abyss iteration other than the Primal Construct boss, which again, you just want Electro and Dendro for. Wanderer down here at 16%, despite having a rerun. Doesn't look like he's too popular, at least on this website, but Wanderer is definitely a strong character. I definitely had the pleasure of using him on Ray's account in a previous video, and he was just destroying everything in the Spiral Abyss. Mona only 14%, and that makes sense since most people seem to opt in for using Shenhe over Mona when it comes to freeze teams. Tignari only at 11.3%, which makes me sad. He is a very solid Dendro DPS, but I definitely understand that the other Dendro main DPS characters are more appealing, like Al-Haytham. Yao Yao 10.8%. I mean, Yao Yao, and I guess they have Traveler here, but they have the wind, or excuse me, they have the Anemo element here. Now, I'm not sure if that's like a typo, because I feel like this is definitely the Dendro version being used, not the Anemo. But I was gonna say Yao Yao and Traveler being really close to each other, since they're probably used for the same purpose here. If you don't have Nahida, or if you're using another Dendro team, these two characters providing plenty of Dendro application. Ganyu makes me sad to see you down here at 9.5%, right next to Tayona at 9.4%, as well as Barbara. Ganyu, I'm pretty sure she can still do the Abyss just fine, especially the first half. It's just that the other teams, you know, have a much easier time and don't require, like, Ganyu definitely requires a shield to feel comfy, right? When using her charge attacks. Now, I know, of course, there's always those really good Ganyu gamers that can just use her by herself or with limited teammates and still do well, but I would say the majority of the player base enjoys using her with a shield for a more comfy playstyle. and that's just something you don't have the luxury of in the first half. Moving on to Venti here, I'm honestly surprised he doesn't have a higher percentage rate here. Just because he actually can be used in the first half. If you're using Venti, you know, he can pull just about at least all the smaller Rift Towns. Not the larger ones in the Lector that spawn in the first chamber, but he can also definitely pull the Shadowy Husks a bit, as well as the Mirror Maiden and the Eremites on the third chamber. But hey, I would say he's a bit higher than his usual pick rate. So he definitely can be used in the Spiral Abyss this time around. Sinnoh, 8.8%, makes me sad to see our favorite dad joke teller down here. I guess he's just not as popular as the others. Fischl, 8.7, just another oof. I feel like she's also really good, but you know, everyone just prefers the other more comfy teams. I feel like Taser teams, which Fischl is definitely a part of, again, as I said before, definitely underrated. Eula at 8%, a solid 8%. Honestly, that's fair. I do wish her percentage rate was a little bit higher, but I also understand that Eula is just, in general, a hard character to use because of her combos and stuff, and again, physical damage not being the most popular thing in the game. Farazan should have her percentage rate honestly be the same as Wanderer, because I would not use Wanderer, at least in Spiral Abyss, without a Farazan, especially at C6. But hey, that's just me, I guess. Apparently half of you are okay with Wanderer not having Farazan. Next up, we have Arataki Ito at 6.5%. I mean, that also just kind of makes sense. Geo, probably the least popular element in the game. That doesn't mean Ito is terrible, though. It just means that other teams can benefit more from elemental reactions, whereas Geo has to just rely on their raw damage. Kirara at 5.7% makes me sad. I feel like our favorite delivery girl should have a higher percentage rate, and maybe she will when she's back in the banner again, because I feel like she was a solid Dendro applicator. So she should definitely be, in my opinion, like around up here with Traveler and Yao Yao. Xiao, 5%. I mean, it's obvious who the more superior Animo DPS is, and the easier one to use. I'm sorry, Xiao mains, but hey, 5% of y'all are still sticking to him, which is nice. Kujo Sara, 4.9%. She does see some usage when using her with a hyper carry team, so you know, like a hyper carry Shogun team is definitely one of her more popular options. Always nice to see her there. Yoimiya, 4.6%, makes me sad. Again, the low usage rate is definitely due to the lack of bosses in this chamber, leaving her with little value in the Spiral Abyss. We have Albedo at 3.7, which again, he's probably has that low usage rate just because, you know, it's Geo. He's probably just used with Arataki Ito and maybe someone else like Noelle when it comes to those team comps. And maybe a few Hu Tao teams that are still running the Walnut comp. Next up, we have Keqing and Rosaria tied at 3.5 each. I'm honestly surprised to see Keqing down here, because we've seen that an Aggravate Keqing can do just as good damage as like a Raiden Shogun Aggravate team, if not more, if you have more constellations for Keqing. So she honestly deserves to be used a bit more than 3.5%. I think she's really solid. I feel like you could definitely use her in the first half of the Abyss, or even the second, both, because Electro Dendro, if you're using her in Aggravate, so really solid team, really solid character. Just surprising to me that she's not used as much, considering she's a standard character as well. Rosaria, also surprisingly low here. I feel like she could be used in a bunch of teams, freeze teams, reverse melt teams, international teams, you know, with Zhong Ling, stuff like that. Plenty of options for her there. Definitely not 3.5% worthy in my opinion. Klee, 3.1%, and that kind of makes sense since her popularity kind of fell off. Despite having a rerun banner in this current patch cycle, we are not seeing a huge spike in Klee usage. There's just plenty of other Pyro DPS that are used these days, or not even Pyro, but just, you know, other teams. But Klee is still a solid character, I would say. Beidou at 2.8% makes me really sad because she should be up there with Fischl because they're definitely used together a lot, and they should be used in a taser comp with Kokomi, but that doesn't seem to be the case. Beidou's still a really strong character. Can definitely help you out with the first half of the Abyss with all those little Rift Hounds and the Shadowy Husk, just applying a ton of electro damage constantly. Next up, we have Jean at 2.6%. And, well, I mean, that just makes sense. She's just a straight-up Animo healer. Nothing much to say there. Kali, 2.3%. Also makes sense. She's probably one of the least popular Dendro characters because of her just lack of Dendro application in general. Feels bad. Despite being free in this event, we do have Layla at 2.2%. And honestly, it's kind of weird that they give you a free Layla to build, right? And then in the Spiral Abyss, they're like, well, let's punish you if you bring a shield. So that's why her usage rate being low there. But she's still a solid shielder if you brought her for the second half. Goro, 2% exactly. And, well, that just makes sense. Geo. Dia at 1.9%. That's honestly surprising to me. I'm very curious to see what kind of teams y'all are running Dia in. So most of y'all that are playing Dia were able to get her signature weapon, which I'm very envious if you did, because that is no longer available in the game. I don't know how you're supposed to get this. Hopefully we get a addition into the standard banners soon for the Beacon of the Reed Sea. Most of y'all have her at Constellation 0. The most popular team, it does look like a Burgeon comp for first half, where we have Nahida, Kokomi, and then Kaza for extra damage and grouping, it looks like. And then we have Dia to offset the Burgeon damage. Seems really nice. It looks like to be the same iteration here. Wait. Now we have sort of an international looking team with 3 Pyro characters here and Kazuha. And then it looks like she's also used with Wanderer. It actually does look like it works really well. We do have a full star clear rate of 66%. That's not bad at all. And then we have, it looks like a Hyper Bloom Burgeon version here with a 100% full star clear rate. The one person that's doing this actually just cleared all of the Spiral Abyss. Good on you. That's an interesting team you have here, and definitely kind of cool. Makes me want to look into it, but it looks like Burgeon is the way to go. Regardless, it's nice to see that Dia has found her place in Genshin, even if a lot of people haven't figured it out yet. It looks like some people have, which is nice to see. Yunjin, 1.2%. She only buffs normal attacks with her burst, and well, if you look at the top, top DPS characters, not too many of them rely on normal attacks. So like we have Alhaitham, who does use charge attacks. I guess Kokomi uses normal attacks, but she's usually used as a a hydro applicator in this case. Sucrose, 1.1%. Oof. Obviously Kazuha and even Venti have definitely taken over as the go-to Animo users. Doesn't mean she's useless or anything like that. It just means the other two are just more comfy to use. Toma being used at 1.1% makes me sad because I feel like he's a solid contender for the Burgeon comp, as I showcased in the video before. Very solid damage, just comfy playstyle overall. I definitely feel like he can easily, clear any half that you put him in. Next up, we have Mika at 1.1%. So apparently some of you are still using our favorite Favonius Scout. It doesn't look like he's too popular in the Spiral Abyss overall. And then the following characters are all used less than 1%, which means like maybe 1 or 2 players out there are using him, which is nice. So we have Kava, Kea, Chi-Chi, Yanfei, Candice. Diluc being here is such a surprise. Lisa, Noelle, Ningguang, Chongyun, Sayu, Haizo, Dora, Razor, Amber, Jinyan, and Alloy. Somebody out there is using their Alloy in the Spiral Abyss. Good on you. I hope it's successful. That's actually really cool that someone's trying to... I don't know if it's for memes or if you're legit just using your alloy there because you enjoy her. So there's the most popular characters as well as the least popular characters in the Abyss. Let me know what you guys think. Do you feel like some of these percentages are definitely like, do you feel like they're off? Like, do you feel like like the community just isn't understanding the value of some of these characters? Because I definitely think so. I pointed out as we were going over the characters that I think a ton of these characters should have way more usage, but at the same time, you know, Spiral Abyss, not everyone's trying to do every team combination possible. Some people just want to use the strongest teams available and just get the Spiral Abyss over and done with, and you know, I don't have to think about it for 2 weeks. So that's why you see, like, you know, the same characters on the top and stuff like that. But there's definitely some characters I still feel like, despite that, should definitely have a higher usage rate, like Beto, for example. But yeah, let me know what kind of teams or characters that you're running in the Spiral Abyss for floor 12 and you're meeting a bunch of success with. I'd love to know. So I can steal it for a video in the future. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just curious to see what people run, because I do see people say stuff like they run Noelle and they still get 36 stars on the Abyss, and they run Ningguang and stuff like that. So it is possible. It's just definitely not as popular as we can see. But do keep in mind that the website that we're using here, the Akasha database here, I would say most of this is from the CN community, and I don't think a lot of the NA and EU players even know about this website existing. So I would definitely say that the numbers aren't 100% accurate, or even like 80% accurate of the actual usage rates of characters here. So definitely we could see some more higher percentages here, especially for these lower ones, these lower lesser used characters here. And don't forget to leave a like and or subscribe if you like this kind of content. I also make character guides, and I plan to have a bunch more content made in the future. So with that being said, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.